Welcome. I'm Jeremiah Riner, and this is the Deeply Rooted Podcast. Hey there, welcome back to the Deeply Rooted Podcast. Jeremiah Riner, your host. It's been a while since we've been on with you guys, so thank you all for tuning in. Wherever you're at, however you may be listening, we appreciate you giving us some time out of your day. We're excited about a brand new year coming up, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. But thank you all for 2025 so far. We had a really good time there. Hope you got a chance to listen to all of the Deeply Rooted conference sessions. We posted those, and so it's been probably well over a month now since we've been able to record. So we're going to try to close out 2025 and work our way into 2026 with something we've done over the last couple of years. We've sort of looked at some things ahead, and we're going to do the same here. So you know the format. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and like, and head on over to our website at deeplyrootedconference.org. You can find all things Deeply Rooted on there. You can also follow myself on Facebook and X if you want to interact a little bit more there on social media, and you can email us at drigw18@gmail.com. Now, all that out of the way to get into our topic here, and we've got a bunch of them technically, because we're going to look into 2026 a little bit, and not predicting the future, but some things to pay attention to. We've done this over the last couple of years, like I mentioned, and we're going to do it again here for this episode. So instead of 26 things in 2026, and just to peel the curtain behind here, hard to come up with 26 things just to look over. I'm sure they're out there, but I didn't really want to meander too much into the weeds on some, kind of finite things. So we want to look at 20 things in 2026 that I think it'd be good for us to keep an eye on, to be praying about, and some points of interest, not just for Christians, but us as individuals in the United States of America. And so I want to start out with everybody's favorite topic, politics, some things to look at here. So number one this year, we've got midterm elections coming up. In November 2026, the elections are going to be determining probably control of the United States Congress and impacting what I would assume is going to be the future of the Trump administration, and potentially leading to some what either could be massive changes or a lot of gridlock, depending on how the vote goes. But voters are going to decide this year all 435 House seats and 33 Senate seats. So the far majority of the United States Congress, by far, is going to be determined this November. So be thinking about that, be praying about that. Lots of decisions to be made and major impact here concerning our nation, especially state by state. Number two, and we're going to stick with a couple things here on these next couple, but number two, the United States Supreme Court is going to be ruling on tariffs. And I know that may sound like a snoozer to most of you, but there's an early year Supreme Court ruling coming up on the president's use of what he basically wielded as emergency powers for tariffs that could impact what most experts believe around 70% of the tariff revenue, and create a massive market change depending on the outcome of this vote. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. Again, court ruling at the United States Supreme Court on the constitutionality of the tariff powers that the president has put into play over the last year. Number three, sticking with the Supreme Court, we are potentially looking at birthright citizenship. This would be a massive Supreme Court case. It's technically pending on the docket. It is labeled under Trump versus Barbara. The Supreme Court could potentially be hearing an early 2026 decision on executive orders challenging birthright citizenship. I know the president has spoke out repeatedly in favor of ending this, a common policy within the United States' history. So that's going to be a major, major change if that ends up ruling in his favor. So something to keep an eye on if they do indeed decide to view that case there. Again, early 2026 potentially for birthright citizenship. Number four, looks like there's going to be a change at the Federal Reserve. The new Fed chair is expected to be named very soon. It's more than likely going to be a Trump loyalist. It's going to take over that, so it's going to raise a lot of questions about the central bank's independence and probably the future path of interest rates and inflation in America. So I know that may not sound like headline news to a lot of us, but the director of that would in turn have a massive effect on the future of, like I said, interest rates and inflation potentially in the United States. Number 5, looking abroad here, the conflict in Israel continues to rage on, but right now there is implementation of a new UN-endorsed peace plan, and there's also some potential changes coming because there's going to be, or should be, new elections in Israel, which have to be held no later than November of 2026. So there's a couple of things to pay attention to in that Israel and Gaza situation right now. I know many of us have been paying attention to that for the last couple of years. So keep that in mind and in your prayers, as they're going to be making some potential political changes, but also possible peace plans on the table. We'll see how that pans out in the future. Number 6, also sticking with some international conflict here, something that the United States has actually involved itself in as I'm recording this just a few days ago. But if you've been paying attention, massive persecution in Central Africa, particularly in places like Nigeria, and also Burkina Faso is also involved in that as well. But Nigeria has seen really the blunt end of everything. Christians are being targeted repeatedly by terrorist organizations, kidnapped, executed. Many churches have been burned and forced to close. It's an awful situation over there. Thousands and thousands of believers have been murdered over the last few years. And as of Christmas Day, 2025, President Trump actually announced that there was a United States coordinated airstrike with the leaders of Nigeria towards terrorist groups, particularly ISIS is the one that he named. So we're going to see how that all flows going forward for that situation. But right now it seems like the United States is starting to sort of put its fist down in that situation, trying to protect Christians. I know many people have been calling for that for a long time, and certainly we want to see our brothers and sisters safe in that part of the world. But so much violence right now going on over there, particularly aimed at, again, believers. Number 7, shifting gears back to the United States here, it seems that New York has decided to just full-blown embrace socialism. The self-proclaimed socialist Zoran Mamdani has won a little over 50% of the support from New Yorkers in November to become its new mayor. He is the first ever openly Muslim leader to ever be given that opportunity. He is a Democrat turned independent challenger against him. Andrew Cuomo just simply received 41% of the vote, and the Republicans trailing massively there with only 7% of the vote, but really not to be surprised with the city. Mamdani, socialist vision, it's gotten a lot of attention during his campaign. He was latching on to a 34-year-old leadership for Democratic Party struggling to really create a vision, I guess, for younger voters, and I think he's finally found his way there. He's pledged to lower living cost and new working class agendas for New Yorkers. He's going to impose apparently a rent freeze on apartments, almost half of the rental apartments in the city, to try to rent stabilize that. He's also promised to eliminate bus fare and provide free child care for children from, as he puts it, 6 weeks all the way up to 5 years old. He says he's also going to try to tackle rising food costs, create a network of city-owned grocery stores focusing on lower prices instead of making profit. Bold proposals, obviously, from the socialists. He's going to lay out a plan to hike corporate tax rates. He's trying to implement a 2% flat tax on New Yorkers who make more than $1 million per year. All that to be said, I think what's going to happen here is history is bound to repeat itself. Sadly, I think the people of New York, our largest city, are about to experience a very hard-earned history lesson from the implementation of socialism, particularly on larger communities. So the city's so nice they named it twice might just be in a bit of peril coming up forward. So something to pay attention to here in the United States. Number 8, speaking of New York, we're actually going to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the September 11th attacks this year. So that's pretty fascinating to think about that for those of us that were alive and very much remember that. It's one of those kind of where were you moments, and I think we can all give a story about that, but they'll be celebrating that and honoring fallen heroes and those individuals that were killed in that attack this year. I'm sure there'll be plenty planned around that up in the New York area and across the nation. I'm sure the president will be involved in some of those festivities as well. So again, 25th anniversary of September 11th, honoring those people that have been slaughtered there at that attack. What feels like not really that long ago, hard to believe, 25 years later, we're looking back on that. Let's go ahead and turn our attention now to economics, I guess, technology, some things to look at here. Number 9, the AI revolution. You can't hardly avoid it. The focus on artificial intelligence, I think, is going to shift, something to pay attention to this year, from more experimental, which is, I think, where a lot of us have been on this lately, whether it be helping you write things, forming pictures, images, all this kind of stuff. And there's many other things. I mean, from coding to who knows what else out there. Many of us have been experimenting with these things. I've done a little bit myself. It is fascinating, to be honest with you. Many people using it now as a search engine for information and data. But I think the shift, this year you're going to see is from more experiment to accountability, trying to deliver more regulation on these results, making sure that things are not harmful, that it's not producing misinformation. I think there's also going to be a massive movement, and this is something else to pay attention to, of all of this investment in data centers. Where are we going to store all these massive databases? Because you have to remember that will drive the demand for a critical amount of minerals and electricity. And I think that's a huge trend to watch in this country as people begin to vie for control of that, not just here, but worldwide, really, as a lot of this stuff is going to have to be gone over, these resources that are going to be needed to create these things. So something I think that we're on the very early end of, and something to pay attention to in 2026, is the AI revolution, and then how that implements in local businesses, everyday life, even churches, something to pay attention to, and how churches handle this situation going forward. Number 10, a lot of merging going on these days, and we are in the middle of a lot of media changes. It seems like historic legacy media is going the way of the dodo bird, I guess, and it looks as if potentially Hollywood might be as well. It's a very interesting development. Netflix just announced not too long ago that they would be trying to buy out Warner Brothers Discovery and all their streaming assets, and at the time an $83 billion value. But at the exact same time, Paramount has swooped in to try to buy the entirety of Warner Brothers Discovery. They've offered a $108 billion deal, where Warner Brothers owns valuable franchises right now like DC Comics, Harry Potter. It's also the home for brands like CNN, HBO, New Line Cinema, and of course Warner Brothers. If Netflix ends up winning, which I don't believe that's really the case here, they would just simply be getting streaming services. They would not be owning cable channels like CNN, for example. But it looks as if they're still going to be out there in the running for it. Paramount, on the other hand, is looking to bid for the entire company. And like a lot of Hollywood's large studios, Warner Brothers Discovery, they've gone through a lot of mergers and acquisitions since its beginning. The buyout would be the company's third change since 2010, and not anything new. Like I mentioned, there's been a lot of companies and a lot of mergers over the last few years, which is a huge change for a lot of people in the way that they're going to consume entertainment and media and things along those lines. But a rundown, really, over the last few years. In 2019, Disney finalized its acquisition of 21st Century Fox. Viacom and CBS joined in that same year. Amazon and MGM Studios merged in 2022. In that same year, Warner Media merged with Discovery, which is the company we're talking about now. So nothing new here. And this summer, in 2025, Paramount and the Skydance Media partnered together. And so you're seeing slowly Hollywood morphing into almost just a handful of companies. And that gives rise to a lot of talk about, in today's world, monopolies. And you're hearing a lot of that going forward. So we're going to see what that looks like for the consumer and for those that are providing all this quote-unquote entertainment for everybody else. So we're going to see, like, is the future of Hollywood changing how we consume entertainment, media, things along those lines. Number 11, April 1st is going to be this is hard to believe, the 50th anniversary of the founding of Apple. That was started by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak and Ronald Wayne, and they are now worth over, think about this, $4 trillion. One of the 10 most successful companies in the world. Last I checked, it was somewhere around 7th or 8th right now. It's been hovering in the top 10 for decades now, but just a massive juggernaut economically. But you have to consider the changes they have implemented over those 50 years. I'd be hard-pressed to find another organization that has made more impact on everyday life than Apple right now. Something to think about. So if you got other considerations for that, email us. Again, drigw18@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. But I don't know, it's a massive, massive piece of history there in Apple turning 50 years old, and yet in that short 50 years, the impact that they have made. Speaking of impact that made, let's look at some pop culture and sports and science a little bit here. For all of you communist kickball fans, and I say that jokingly, I'm referring to soccer, obviously, but the FIFA World Cup's coming this year to basically North America. This is going to be neat, so grab your tickets if you're a fan. I think this will be pretty cool. But the largest, basically in history, the largest World Cup as far as spread abroad. We're looking at 16 cities across the United States and Canada and Mexico, 48 teams, and the United States, thankfully, because we're helping host, we are an automatic qualifier, so I think we might have had a little bit of a hard time getting in without that. But we are going to see our guys get out there and compete with the best in the world, so it should be a fun time. So if you're into that, be paying attention to places and potential opportunities for jumping on some of those tickets. If not, it's going to be covered widely. The good news is we're not going to have any time issues. So for all those years where it was being played in Europe or Asia or something like that, we're not going to have to worry about the time restraints. So thankfully, it's all going to be in North America. So good news for all of us. Number 13, if you're into astronomy, you'll like this, but NASA's crew, the Artemis 2, is going to be taken off sometime this year. They're planning another launch to return back around the moon. 10-day trip is what they're scheduled for, a 4-man crew going all the way around the moon and back. So we're going to have to be paying attention for that this year. Artemis 2, that's the mission. Staying with astronomy, number 14 here, for the first time in over 20 years, there'll be a solar eclipse in Europe. Should be mostly visible in like northern Spain, Iceland, Greenland, places like that. Researchers tell us should be shooting for somewhere around August 12th. So keep that in mind for those guys. Should be some neat pictures coming out about that. Again, early August for the total solar eclipse there over most of Europe. Speaking of Europe, one place I've actually had the fortune of being in Italy. They're going to be hosting the Winter Olympics this year. That's going to take place in February and March, so that's right around the corner for us. Up in that northeastern territory of Italy, we're going to be hosting the Winter Olympics there for those guys, so up in the Alps. So this should be really, really beautiful stuff. Looking forward to seeing that. And also for sports, if you're more into baseball, we're going to be seeing the World Baseball Classic this year. The tournament finals are going to be held in the United States. We're going to be hosting that in Miami, Florida. But games are also going to be hosted in Puerto Rico, Japan, different places like that. That's going to be around March, so right before the actual Major League Baseball season really kicks off. So that should be really fun to see some of our guys go out there and compete against the best in the world. So World Baseball Classic there, number 16, coming our way in early spring. Now for some other trends to pay attention to this year. And not so great ones. These are things I think Christians should be praying about and thinking about, and even something that I think we could do a little bit better job of teaching to our younger generations coming up. But right now, number 17, the household composition. For the very first time in the history of us tracking this, fewer than half of U.S. households are actually headed by married couples. It's actually about 47%. So we are sadly seeing the deterioration, not only of the home, but really the difficulty economically right now for families to actually be able to participate in the housing market with inflation right now and interest rates just sky high. Very, very difficult right now for families to participate in this. And I think that's had a really negative downturn effect on people for marriage, family building, things along those lines. And leading into that, number 18, the total fertility rate right now in the United States, staggering. For the first time ever, we are at 1.6 births per woman. That is well below what is referred to as the replacement level, which is 2.1 required to keep a population just stable without immigration, and certainly with our crackdown on illegal immigration over the last year, and that looks to be going forward, certainly as well with the Trump administration. This fertility rate is a little alarming. So the United States, looking at some interior problems, to say the least, with housing crisis, fertility rates, marriage rates, something to really be praying about in local churches, and parents, be talking to this about your children. I mean, this is a gift from God, something that He's ordained, marriage, to raise a family and to go out there and really procreate, to further the kingdom of God and participate in the good gifts that God has given us. So keep an eye on that. 17 and 18 there, household composition and total fertility rate here in America. Other changes, we'll look at changes in leadership. There's been a lot of that going on, particularly even in the Christian community. So, for example, a lot of parachurch organization and conservative organizations. I think the first one that probably comes to mind is Turning Point USA. We sadly saw back on September 10th the assassination of the founder of TPUSA, Charlie Kirk. Such an awful situation there, but just a few months back, they have actually named his wife, Erica Kirk, the new president of that nonprofit organization. I bring it up because they are a multi-million-dollar endeavor, and they have a significant impact on young conservative voters in America. They're still going campus to campus. Many high school organizations set up with Turning Point USA. It's still a very, very large organization. So as they change leaders going forward now, it'll be interesting to see how they handle and process all this, and what the outcome of this could be on young voters and the demographics, especially going into a midterm election year. As far as the Christian communities, two big changes coming up in parachurch organizations. For example, G3 has named Scott Aniol its new president after the disqualification of founder and President Josh Buice back in May of 2025. They're actually going to be bringing back the conference in September in Atlanta again after deciding to forego that event last year in wake of Buice's controversy and his dismissal. So we'll see how that goes forward for them, and how well that's attended, and how that's structured as they continue to sort of press forward in light of all that terrible situation last year. And speaking of changes as well in parachurch organizations, it'll be very interesting to see this coming, That'll be March for the Shepherds Conference this year. Major changes for them. This will be the very first Shepherds Conference at Grace Community Church where Pastor John MacArthur will not have been there. The founder of Shepherds Conference, sadly, and the pastor of Grace Community Church passed away back in July of last year, and the conference is going to focus on his life and ministry, actually, honoring him, which I think is very neat. And a lot of his old friends are going to be coming over and speaking at this, so something to pay attention to as they try to press forward. As a matter of fact, as of now, the church has yet to name a new pastor, so maybe something else to look at in the coming year. A very large church there in Southern California. So Shepherds Conference, G3, Turning Point USA, lots of changes in major organizations and parachurch organizations throughout the United States. And speaking of the United States, number 20, as we get to the end of it here, the United States of America is having a birthday, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be turning 250 years old. July 4th, 1776, and now July 4th, good Lord willing, 2026. We are going to be looking at 250 years of independence for the United States of America. Fascinating. And speaking of that, and I want to say this for last, we here at Deeply Rooted are actually going to be focusing on that topic for most of the first part of this year, actually all the way up and through the month of July. We are planning on looking at the history of American church and its impact and all the good, bad, and ugly that comes with it, from the revivals and inceptions and the foundings of this nation to different denominations, looking at church practices that have came about simply based on more American traditions. We're going to look at different factions and groups that have arisen, like Mormons and others that have evolved through the history of the United States. We'll look at foreign missions and what we've done there, prominent figures. Just really, really looking forward to getting in on those topics. We've got some really nice guest speakers lined up. We'll be lining up a whole lot more, I promise you. And so a lot of research, so pray for us. We're going to try to make sure we get our facts and straight on those things and keeping things in order. But I think this will be fascinating, looking at 250 years of what the Lord has done in this nation and utilizing certain people and groups and local churches to further His kingdom and what God has brought about in this nation in what feels like a long time, but in comparison to eternity, a short 250 years of God's gracious hand on us. And again, we'll look at all facets of that. Some of that will be extremely positive and uplifting, and some of it will be more cautionary tales of things that have come and gone, and maybe things to keep an eye out for going forward. So that's the 20 in 250 years, so to speak, or at least the 20 that we need to be looking at going forward for 2026. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, email us if you got any questions or if you want to add to that. Maybe there's some other things that we didn't cover that we should have. Let us know. We'll try to get that out there to the rest of the audience. Again, DRIGW18 at gmail.com. You can follow me on Facebook. You can follow me on X. Again, you can look at our website there at deeplyrootedconference.org. So we appreciate that, and we are so looking forward to 2026 and getting into all those topics and having those conversations. We hope you enjoy it. I think you will. I think people will benefit from that. So until next time, as always, we love you guys and hope you have a great week in Jesus.